Renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply.
Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? He still has the gun. The gun is pointed at me right at this moment. Take a hold of his thumb and break it if you have to. We will run a full suicide. We have an explosion and we are defending and we agree. Let's try our best.
People calling themselves members of the Weather Underground last night planted bombs in federal office buildings in Washington and Oakland, California.
They took the babies out of incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
Survivors of the USS Liberty are demanding a congressional investigation into what happened and acknowledgement that the Israeli Air Force bombed a U.S. intelligence Navy ship.
The death of bin Laden marks the most significant achievement to date in our nation's effort to defeat al-Qaeda.
The Taliban is taking responsibility for shooting down a U.S. helicopter. More than 30 people were killed, and there are reports this morning that most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
There may be a false flag incident where some ship goes down and you be used for the excuse to accelerate the next war.
If there's one thing that has unified Democrats and Republicans, and everybody in between, it's that we all hated the bank bailout.
The Department of Homeland Security is apparently on a huge ammo buying spree.
It comes out to like 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition.
Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
They estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say eliminate, I mean kill.
I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
For the next 30 minutes, we have former New Mexico Governor, Libertarian, Gary Johnson in here with us to talk about the whole waterfront. We'll get into that pretty much in the next segment. And then I'm going to continue looking at Nigel Farage becomes popular in Greece after outburst against the prime minister. We're going to play that clip coming up. I'm meaning to do it since last week, but now it's in The Guardian over the weekend that he's like a Ron Paul over there. Anybody that, it doesn't matter, left, right, center, who speaks about liberty and not letting these big mega banks run roughshod on us and special interest be above the law is becoming incredibly popular. And that was in the Financial Times of London last Thursday. The tide is rising for American libertarians. The new spirit is rising. Climate of anti-politics has become an attitude rather than a movement. And it shows how people are really starting to wake up. And that's what I want to talk to Gary Johnson about coming up. You know, he's got a national organization that he's got out there educating people. Of course, he ran for president. I guess he's gearing back up to do that as we build these movements. Because even though Ron Paul and people like himself didn't win right away, we're winning the hearts and minds by creating the alternative to the one-party dictatorship that has two heads, the two-headed monster, OurAmericaInitiative.com. Governor, it's good to have you here with us in the studio.
Alex, it's great to be with you here in the studio.
We're going to go to break in a minute. This is kind of a short little no man's land segment, but what do you want to cover when we come back?
Well, I got 1,300,000 votes running for president. Really disappointed that it wasn't a lot more. But nonetheless, 1,300,000 votes. But what I'd like to point out is that these libertarian ideas that we're talking about are really gaining traction in spite of the politicians. The notion of marriage equality. Of course, I believe that that is a constitutionally guaranteed right, but that's happening. Legalization of marijuana. It's happening in spite of the politicians. These are issues that are moving forward. And then if you look at Syria, look. Wasn't Congress and the president just geared up to go into Syria and what? 80% of Americans don't want to do that? I mean, every politician in the country had their pants down.
And people are getting more pro-gun, more private property rights. It's happening.
Well, it's happening. So in spite of not holding political office, and I'm talking about myself as president or other libertarians that have been running or liberty-minded Republicans, you know, not a great big showing, but the reality is that in spite of our elected officials, we're moving forward with these ideas nationally in a big way. And that's what you let off by talking about that.
Well said. I want to come back then and burrow more into Syria and where that's going and the attempts to start all these wars. I want to talk about the unitary executive. It's gotten bad for a while, but now Obama on just guns, borders, war, Obamacare, saying, I will decide what to implement, and I will decide what not to implement. The NSA, Obama, as you know, the Congress said, well, we'll let you decide what to do, President. I mean, what's that sound like to you, Governor?
Well, I had the same experience as governor of New Mexico. Don't underestimate how much you can do administratively. I mean, you can do an enormous amount administratively. But the rub is that unless it's codified in legislation, unless you get legislation and you sign whatever it is you're doing administratively into law, it lasts as long as you're in office. So I did all these. I in my heart of hearts, believe I did many significant things without the legislation, involved, because I did it administratively. But guess what? I leave office and it gets turned around completely. So with Obama, same phenomenon. You'd like to see the legislation that goes along with the words. So Obama the other day, I mean, he talked pretty gloriously about cutting back on the NSA, but my response is...
Hello, this is Hank Hill, and I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com.
My judge, what is the secret of the universe?
Infowars.com.
Former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson, who also ran for president in the last election cycle as a libertarian, is here with us in studio. And it's a perfect time to have him in studio with us. He's been traveling around the country with Ben Swan on their libertarian independent media tour. The tide is rising for American libertarians. That's the Financial Times of London last week reporting on that, and that across the board, people just want more freedom. Whether they identify themselves as Republican or Democrat, more and more they just call themselves libertarian. And the issue is the establishment recognizes that and is making a big move to try to co-opt it, while at the same time going after kind of the Republican Party version of it, the real Tea Party. They tried to take it over. That didn't work. Now the Republican Party and Democratic Party leadership is pooling resources to go after that. And it's not that any of these groups are perfect. It's just that they're independent opposition that isn't part of the two-party dictatorship that's really a two-headed monster. Now, Governor, I want to get into some of the victories of awakening we're seeing. But in that short little segment for folks that just joined us, we were starting to talk about Obama last week, the president, and his speech about the NSA, saying Paul Revere would have liked this. This is our next-door neighbor. What is your take on, the patently illegal NSA takeover?
Well, stop spying on us. I mean, stop with the NSA intelligence gathering altogether. I mean, the whole notion of due process is just laughable when you have a FISA court that grants authority for NSA to tap 110 million Verizon users. So Obama says now there's going to be oversight. We're going to stop this. Well, that's laughable, too, because this is the guy that said when it came to health care that we were going to be able to keep our policies, that things would cost less, that we'd be able to keep our existing policies. Well, my health insurance tripled, Alex. It's not working out that way. And so when it came to words in the NSA, not bad. No surprise. Didn't go far enough.
But it's meant to make everybody go back to sleep.
It's meant to make everybody go back to sleep, and everybody's going back to sleep.
Incredible. You think they're going back to sleep?
There's no smoking gun out there when it comes to the NSA. There really isn't a smoking gun. In other words, most people, look, if you want to spy on me, you want to read my emails, you want to listen to my phone conversations, well, have at it, because, Yeah,
they don't know that it's economically being used to control, to have algorithms, to have databases on people. They think, oh, I'm not a terrorist. spy on me, but they don't know that's not what it's about. Actually, for me, the smoking gun is using the NSA on the press, Fox News, Associated Press, and others. I mean, I think that's impeachment right there.
Well, and, Hayek spoke about the fact that we're socialists. I mean, we've been socialists for a long time, but it's getting heightened, if you will. And the real fear is where we're headed is fascism. And we're not talking about, I'm not talking about Nazism, not talking about white supremacy here at all. I'm just talking about the notion of big brother government gaining more and more and more control in our lives. And that's the real threat. And that's where all this is headed. And you can use Germany as a template for what happened. But when you talk about fascism, I'm not talking about Nazi Germany. I'm not talking about white supremacy. We're
talking about a corporate rule through government.
Corporate in conjunction with the
state
with government, and that's a direct quote from Mussolini that was the case, that government should be a cooperative effort with corporate.
Absolutely, that is the definition of it. And so we're hurtling into it, and the big corporations are getting access to a lot of this data, and it's really creating a two-class system where
those that can get money, those that can't get money. I mean, now you're back to the Federal Reserve and the banking system and the corporatization of America.
Well, that's what I was about to get into. It's almost like rollerball with James Caan, where the corporate class is above the law. What do you make of the big banks trying to get diplomatic immunity, the UN? The Muslim Brotherhood being able to bypass the TSA. I mean, this really shows how if you're part of the system, you're above the law.
Well, what we need to understand is this is gaining traction. This isn't losing traction. So the liberty movement, libertarianism is about actually trying to roll this back in a big way. And of course, Obama had that opportunity, and no surprise, he didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And the only way it's going to stick is if you get legislation. I mean, whatever he does administratively, cutting back or heightening whatever it is he does, the next president can change unless this gets codified in.
But Congress is supposed to have the laws. So for Congress to say, Obama, you scale them back, that's a cop-out. And then he's been caught saying, oh, I'm against the NDAA. Turns out he helped write it. Don't worry, I won't sign it. He does sign it. I mean, this is serious.
Well, it is. You could use coal right now as an example. I mean, there is the EPA writes rules against carbon emission, declaring carbon as a pollutant. And because of that, they're putting the coal business out of business, and they're doing that administratively. This is not laws that have been passed.
And he said that. He said, you can have a coal plant, but we're going to bankrupt you.
Well, that's... I'm not familiar with that quote.
Guys, pull up the quote. Obama says he'll bankrupt coal. It's 20 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh, if you're going back a long ways, but in effect...
Yeah, 7 years ago.
Yeah, in effect, that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, look at how he gives General Electric waivers, but then not the other companies. They can go dirty. The others don't have to. I mean, that's the essence of discrimination. Well, that's new royalty, where the king says you can do business, but the other person can't.
And as you're well aware, that's what's happened with the healthcare rollout.
Now, what do you make of that, where he will selectively decide what's implemented now?
Well, being done administratively, and look, the whole healthcare debacle is just that, a debacle. And
where do you think it's going?
Where do I think it's going? Mm-hmm. Well, it's moving further and further to socialism, but now I'm back to quoting Hayek. The goal is socialism, but the reality is that it ends up being fascist.
Look at the Soviet Union.
Yep.
Can't the left just get it? Communism and socialism doesn't work.
Well, no. That's no. They can't, and socialism in and of itself as a goal, that's well-meaning people. I don't want to say that these people aren't well-meaning, but what they're missing is where it actually ends up, and it doesn't end up as socialism; it ends up as fascism.
That's right, but as you've seen around the country with OurAmericanInitiative.com, there is a huge rising tide, and the establishment admits that. But as the Financial Times says, they're just getting out of politics. People say, I don't agree with this. I'm a libertarian, but they leave the process. The answer is get involved in the process, but also start setting up alternative media, alternative currencies, alternative cultures, so you build a new system while we try to go in self-defense and take over the old.
And that's the reality. That is happening in conjunction. And that's the heartening part about all this, is that, okay, libertarians haven't won office, but look at the issues. Colorado legalizes marijuana. Washington State. I mean, we're just on the cusp of this. But you know what? It's the tipping point. The world, the United States, is going to legalize marijuana here. It's at a tipping point, and it'll legalize marijuana when everybody recognizes that Colorado is a better place to live, because police will go out and enforce real crime as opposed to nonviolent, victimless crime. And let's not forget either that citizens, Colorado is really advanced on this. Citizens of Denver many years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. And I've always maintained that.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that, Obama said that it's the same as alcohol. No, it's not. Marijuana is a lot less destructive in all the studies than alcohol. Alcohol is very destructive. Even though I don't like marijuana, I like alcohol. But the whole point is that does show a sea change. My only problem is George Soros and people are for decriminalizing it because they see the business opportunities in it, and plus they want everybody stoned out of their mind. I think marijuana is massively abused. So just because I'm for decriminalization, legalization, doesn't mean I endorse the extreme culture of dopeheadness.
Well, and you know what, Alex? I don't drink. I don't drink because I think it's a lot worse. Having drank and smoked, I don't begrudge the fact that you're going to have a few cocktails at all, as long as whatever your consumption does to you doesn't affect me.
Well, I don't even really have, I kind of off and on, I'll go years without a cocktail and then do some cocktails. But I mean, undoubtedly, I've looked at the studies. Alcohol in the aggregate kills hundreds of thousands of people a year. Well, and marijuana, nobody.
Yeah, and I've always maintained that legalizing marijuana would actually lead to overall less substance abuse.
Well, yeah, because it'll get rid of the gateway.
Well, and gateway has been refuted, I think, completely. But some people. But
I mean, look, you make marijuana illegal, then you get it from the drug culture. And at least in my experience growing up, I didn't do hard drugs, but I saw it.
Right. No, see, you're right on. You go to get your marijuana today in a black market. Well, gee, we're out of marijuana today, but we got some methamphetamine.
Yeah, in my experience in high school, that's exactly how it worked.
Well, right.
Because I had friends that would start smoking pot, and they go, "Oh, now we're doing this."
In that respect, it remains a gateway. In that respect.
Yeah, only in the black market. That's what I'm saying.
Only in the black market, exactly.
So get rid of the black market, and then it gentrifies.
Well, and in this case, like I say, I think in a legalized environment, people will find marijuana as a more viable alternative to alcohol.
Here's my issue. I see it as a bellwether, but quite frankly, I'd like to legalize the Second Amendment. I'd like to legalize freedom. I'd like to legalize families.
The Constitution, and of course, where in the Constitution does it say that at least when it came to the prohibition of alcohol, they made it a constitutional amendment?
Well, I mean, my issue is we know more guns, less crime. The places that took the guns have higher crime. I want to ask you about the Second Amendment when we come back. Syria, about your national campaign, where you're going, your website, and more. Final segment with Gary Johnson. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com, None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. OurAmericaInitiative.com. I consulted on a film, American Drug War I, with my friend Kevin Booth that aired all over cable TV and was a big hit. And, of course, Governor Johnson's in that. That was the first time I was ever, you know, able to actually sit down and watch raw footage of him talk about things. And I agree with a lot of what he has to say. My bottom line is this. I agree the libertarian movement's exploding. Just the awakening's exploding. Elaborate on Syria and what happened there.
Well, just that we should not be involved in Syria. We should stop our military interventions. I think we have tens of millions of enemies to this country that would not exist but for our military interventions. And this was going to be an extension of that. This was going to be a worse situation. We oust the dictator, we replace him with the good guy, and the good guy becomes worse than the guy we replaced before. And I'm pointing out the obvious things that you talk about every single day.
But it's good news because, as you said, upwards of 82%, depending on the poll, some were 77, some 80, some 82. You said
recognize that.
But, but I'm impressed that you average the two together. That's what I do. I really, because I know the numbers. It's funny to hear you say the exact number. Of all the polls, it was about 80% of you average them together. Said no way, including conservatives that are usually big warmongers under their conditioning, you know, mainline Republicans and Democrats coming together. That's what the establishment fears, was saying we're not going to be Al-Qaeda's Air Force.
No, it was terrific. I mean, Congress, all of Congress got caught with their pants down, and so did the president when they came up against Americans' actual attitude toward doing this again.
And we had to have that war, Kerry said, in days or everybody's dead. And notice months later, 4 months later, we're all fine.
Gee. You know, I was in Austin yesterday for the gun rights rally. I got to be the opening speaker at that gun rights rally.
We got some video of that. It's coming on the news tonight. Good job.
It's terrific. I mean, I appreciate everybody that was out there that was openly carrying. Freedoms that don't get exercised get lost. And you know what, Alex? When I was governor of New Mexico, I got to sign the concealed carry legislation in New Mexico. This was 1995.
You were a leader in that.
Well, when I signed it, though, the legislature came to me and they said, hey, the only way we're going to pass this is if we have this educational program that's going to go along with it. We pay for the permits. And then I had the really gun rights people say, you know, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't you know, just allow us to do it, period. Well, my final take on it was if that's the route that we go, it'll never pass. So I did sign it. But after Aurora, Colorado, lengthening my story here, after Aurora, Colorado, I make a pledge to myself that I'm going to get my concealed carry permit, all right? Because I want, if I'm ever found in a situation, if I find myself in a situation like that, I want to be able.
Good guys have a responsibility.
Good guys have a responsibility. Exercise your freedoms. Well, now I go looking into the concealed carry permit in New Mexico, which I signed the legislation, and I haven't been able to carve out the amount of time that I have to go and attend these classes to do this. And it's a fair amount of money. It's not cheap to do all this, to take this class and to then get the permit. And then it has to be renewed.
So we need open carry.
Well, there is open carry that exists in New Mexico, and of course that's
we need open concealed carry.
We need
a right to carry.
We need open concealed carry. But back to the whole gun rights issue too. Back to the Second Amendment is these are freedoms that we now have to exercise. I need to take the time and go and get this permit, because if I don't go and get it, this will be a freedom that'll get taken away. I exercise it, it'll be harder to take that away.
Exercise your muscles or lose them.
Exercise your muscles or lose them.
And that's what you're doing. People can join you at ouramericainitiative.com. And we got about a minute and a half left. What do you want to close with, Governor?
Well, just the notion that, keep up the vigilance. I appreciate what you do out there. I appreciate the things that you say, the awareness. I was at an event last night, Alex, where a woman was a Democrat, and now she's a libertarian because of Alex Jones, which I thought was terrific. And so even though we're not in elected office, and don't get me wrong, I realize there are those that are leaning that attain office. I mean, there are gains being made in that direction.
The point is, we are the future.
The issues are being addressed. The issues are happening. The issues that concern us are advancing.
Well, look at how many Ron Paul libertarian-type Republicans are getting elected in the Tea Party movement. The real Tea Party, not the the Republican one.
Well, not the, I was asked that question the other night about Tea Party. What do you think about the Tea Party? My response was, which Tea Party? The original Tea Party that talked about dollars and cents, and the Tea Party that I identified with, or the Tea Party today that has two signs in their hand? One, balance the federal budget, and the other one, don't touch my Medicare? Which Tea Party?
Absolutely. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.